Okay, so we've already discussed how we cite sources, that we need attributive phrases, we need in-text citations, and we need works cited pages. We've already discussed how to cite sources, that we need attributive phrases, we need in-text citations, we need works cited pages. We've also discussed at great length at how we format a great and beautiful works cited page. Okay, now we need to discuss how we punctuate those in-text citations. There's not a lot of rules, but you really have to grab onto the couple rules that there are so you can do it properly. Okay, so here are some of the guidelines. So first of all, and again, this is all for MLA. Okay, so in APA, actually, instead of, it's usually the author's last name and the year. Okay, and they're not so concerned about page numbers. But we're going to discuss MLA because that's what we're using in our class. But just be aware that if you are using APA, that you should go to Owl Purdue or get a style guide to help you out with that. But if known, you need to include both author and page number. Okay, sometimes you're not going to have one or the other. Okay, you need to enclose the whole the whole in-text citation within parentheses. Okay, and then this whole what we also call, okay, so there's okay, so there are just a few guidelines. They're not very difficult, but if you're unfamiliar with working with MLA, then it might be, Okay, so we're going to discuss how to punctuate in-text citations. So we've already looked that we need attributive phrases, in-text citations, and works cited pages to work together to help people understand where our sources come from and to avoid plagiarism. We also have looked at how to format a wonderful works cited page. But now we have to look at that in-text citation. Okay, and there are just a couple punctuation guidelines here. So I would go ahead after we've gone through all of these, make sure you pause where you need to and jot these down. Because if you get these guidelines down, you'll make sure that your paper is picture perfect, at least in terms of citations. So first of all, if it's known, include both the author and the page number. So in this case, I give you an example, and you'll see that I don't separate the author and the page number with anything. I don't put like a P5 for page 5. I don't put a comma between the two. So it's just Smith 5. So we know that's last name Smith, the author is Smith, and it's on page 5. Okay, you want to put the whole thing within parentheses, as in the example above. And that's why you'll sometimes hear in-text citations also called parenthetical citations, and that's because they appear within parentheses. Okay, your parenthetical citation, so your in-text citation, which includes the parentheses, always goes inside the end punctuation. Okay, but it goes outside quotation marks, and we'll look at some of the examples like this. Okay, and you don't utilize an in-text citation if there's no page number and you've mentioned the author and the attributive phrase. If no author is given, use the title of the source. So if you go ahead and look at your works cited page, if you go ahead and look at your works cited page, you'll notice that sometimes you don't have authors for that. In that case, usually the title of the piece, so whether it be a journal title, okay, sometimes you just can't find the author. In that case, you're going to use the title of the source, whether it be the title of the journal article, the title of the website, and in that case, you'll actually see that enclosed. Okay, sometimes no author is given. In that case, anytime in those guidelines 1 through 5, when I've said author, if you can't find an author, you will substitute the title of the source in that case. Okay, so let's look at a couple examples. So this particular one, we have a quote. It says, more than 3,700 years ago, when the Babylonian king Hammurabi set down one of the first known codes of law, the code contained a reference to children who violently rebelled against the social order. Worth 27. So you'll see we have our in-text citation here. We have a quote. So the in-text citation appears outside that last quotation mark, but it's within that period. So outside, it's not within quotation marks, but it's within the end punctuation. Let's look at another one. Oh, and we should also pay attention that here they didn't use an attributive phrase. They didn't say according to worth. If they had said according to worth, they would have said according to worth more than 3,700 years ago, ba 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 ba, social order. And then you would have just had 27 in the parentheses. You wouldn't have worth 27 because you've already mentioned worth. Okay, so here's an example where there either wasn't, actually, there wasn't an author nor was there a page number. So in this case, we have some paraphrasing. We know that because we don't see quotation marks. So the U.S. Department of Education urges Congress to appropriate $53 million towards the arts and education programs. In 2009, schools only received $38 million. So they found these facts and details from a particular and perhaps website. We'll look at the works cited page, I think. But there is no specific author given. So they use the title of the source here. You'll notice that the title of the source is within quotation marks, and just follow your works cited page. If your works cited page has put those in quotation marks, go ahead and put those in quotation marks. If you have a really long title, actually shorten it down so it's not so cumbersome, and you can just use the first couple words of it or sum it up in some way. And there's no page number because I'm assuming that there are no page numbers in this particular source. Nowadays with online resources, lots of times we don't have page numbers to reference, so that's why we have no page number here. Okay, so if we look at the works cited page, this works together. So we see the worth down at the bottom. Okay, and so that seems to be a book. And they give us the page number. And then we also, what was the other? Okay, so here we look at a works cited page, and this actually does not necessarily correlate with the in-text citations we used earlier, but I wanted you to go ahead and look at the last two citations on this works cited page. You'll see for the pres and passion. And so these are two examples of times when we do not have an author for our works cited page. We couldn't, oh, sorry. So these are both examples when a source does not have an author. So in this case, the title takes the next precedence. So in this example, for the Pres, that's a really long title. It's for the Pres, number 7, Hoyas beat number 8, Devils, 89 to 77. That's a really long title. I actually wouldn't recommend that you include that whole title if you utilize it in a works cited page. Instead, I would probably just go for everything before the semicolon, so for the pres. And unless you had something else, another source that was for the pres, so maybe one was for the pres, number 7, Hoyas beat, and then there was another source that said for the pres, number 6, somebody beats. Unless it could be confused for another source, you should be fine. The big thing you really want to pay attention to in text citations is that you've given the reader all the information that he or she needs to go back to the works cited page and identify which source that you're talking about. Okay, so here's one more works cited page, and again, you'll utilize your. So here's one more works cited page, and again, you'll just notice that these work together. In this case, all of these have authors. So you would have Friedman or Medlin or Naramore, Strasser or Worth. Some of them have page numbers. So a couple of them, I think. Actually, none of these have page numbers. So I would assume that they don't have page numbers at all. If in fact there are page numbers that they use specifically, then no. Actually, let's just delete this. Okay, so that's just a little peek of how you punctuate, just the very basics of punctuating in-text citations. This should be more than enough for you to be able to accurately punctuate the in-text citations that you have in your argument papers. If you need more information, certainly go ahead and click here and go ahead and jot down the keyword delight, and you'll go ahead and put that into a quiz onto D2L. So again, I hope this was helpful. We'll be doing more exercises regarding this, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye. Hi, baby.